Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. This is your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. Today, I'm here with Ashley Stanford. Ashley, how are we doing?
I'm doing great, Gabriel. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for joining the show. So we're going to be talking quite a bit of different things because Ashley, she's the executive VP at Client Strategy for TicketSocket, as well as the co-founder and VP of Ice Cream Social, which is a ticket widget that streamlines and maximizes ticket revenues for clients. So we're going to get into a lot of that. But first, before we jump into all of that, Ashley, give us an introduction. Who is Ashley Stanford?
Ooh, loaded question, huh?
Start out right off the bat.
All right. From a entrepreneurial perspective, I've been doing digital marketing for about 17 years now. Have always built a freelance career during that entire time. I've, of course, do work with companies. So I kind of like to say that I'm just preneur. And that can be, I do have a lot of entrepreneurial endeavors. I have intrapreneurial where I'm working inside of companies. And then, of course, I've always just got some fun solopreneur projects going. And I live in Orange County, California, in Huntington Beach. And I've got 2.5 kids, one on the way.
I love it.
And yeah.
Love it. Yeah, good old sunny California. I was down there a couple of months ago, and I got to tell you, folks, if you have not been able to visit Orange County, please do. It is gorgeous, and it is usually the weather's pretty good, so
Can't complain.
can't complain. So let's get into this. Let's tell us about your current venture, Ice Cream Social. Love to learn a little bit more about that. Tell us what it is and how you started it.
Sure. As you mentioned, I work with a company called TicketSocket that does white label ticketing. And my role essentially at TicketSocket was to help all of our clients sell as many tickets as possible without spending more money in their marketing budget. And, you know, we just kind of got to a point where we'll have all different marketing channels deployed. We've got a great strategy and things are running, but you kind of hit a plateau and it's like, what more can we do to drive sales? But we also just don't want to keep spending more money on Facebook ads. And that question, which was posed to me by a couple clients, really got us thinking over there of like, what could we do? And that's where the idea for Ice Cream Social was born. And essentially, what it is a widget that you can bolt onto any website or checkout flow. And it incentivizes word of mouth marketing. So, we're all familiar with word of mouth marketing, we're familiar with influencers, and this basically gamifies it and turns every single customer into an influencer. And unpopular opinion, but I would like to say that every single person, whether you know it or not, is an influencer, even if you're not on social media.
This is very true.
We all have friends and family that we talk to.
This is very true.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think what you're doing essentially with this Ice Cream Social is you're kind of helping the ticket company with their sales funnel essentially to create a loyal consumer.
Exactly. Just helping events take their existing customer database who are the best people to ask who would want to come to the event because they've already bought a ticket and are going and probably have friends and family with similar interests that would want to go. So we're just, pulling that lever and making it so easy and incentivizing them for just inviting people.
I love it. Folks, I think we've talked about this before. So let's kind of just, quick overview the refer and provider or the sales funnel, the marketing funnel. Why is it so important? I keep on saying refer and provider because I work in the healthcare world and I created one for healthcare specifically. But
Oh,
the
nice.
sales funnel. So think of the sales funnel as, the first thing you want to do is awareness stage, right? You're trying to get individuals aware of that's where Ashley was mentioning Facebook really comes into play, right? You're building your brand. And then you want to get them down to the consideration stage. So now they're starting to consider purchasing your service, your items, or whatever that may be, right? And then the third stage is the actual purchase. Okay, now that you've made a purchase, they now have your product or service in hand. And what Ashley is now trying to do is now helping you create a loyal consumer, which is the fourth stage in your funnel and the last one. And the reason why this is important, the reason why Ashley was mentioning, everybody is in fact an influencer, even if you don't have social media, because your words, if you go out and you tell one of your friends about the coffee shop that you just went to right down the road, they may be more inclined to go to that coffee shop. Now, the beauty of it is the coffee shop actually wants more and more people to talk about how awesome the coffee shop is because it's free, right? It's free marketing for them. And essentially, you just create a way to incentivize those people to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, how does the incentive piece work?
Sure. So we customize that for each client that we work with. And um, if it wasn't obvious, this tool worked out very well to the point where we peeled it off as just a feature of TicketSocket and it became its own standalone company, which is why it's now called Ice Cream Social. And essentially, we work with each client, and there's some different factors that we take into consideration. What are they selling? What's the average cart total? What's their demographic? And we'll craft an offer. A lot of times, what it looks like that we see perform really well is, hey, invite your friends. If you get 5 friends to buy a ticket, we'll refund you for your ticket.
Nice.
Because a lot of times that cost to refund somebody for a ticket is way lower than the cost per acquisition on your other marketing channels.
That's a smart endeavor, and I really like how, again, it's kind of like encouraging. That's like the point system, right?
Yeah.
People want to kind of get to that point. Now, let's take a step back. I would love to learn how you got into the ticket market, like this industry, this kind of this selling tickets. How did you get into that?
Sure. Well, actually, the company that the people that started TicketSocket, that was my very first job at 17 years old. Had another company that did website development. And so over the years, it morphed into TicketSocket. There was a period of time, obviously, where I went out on my own. I consulted with other companies, and I still do all of that. But, once you meet great people and you stay connected and network, like some relationships never die. And when the time was right and the opportunity was there, I came back to work with them again in a much larger capacity than I had over the years. But in my consulting, I worked in a lot of different industries. I did focus a lot in healthcare, so very interesting, actually medical device more specifically, for about 10 years, and then did a lot of fintech, and then kind of morphed into uh, events. And that was so intriguing to me to make that jump because as you likely know, because I'm sure it's very similar in healthcare, but with medical device, you do so much marketing, digital marketing, but because of like compliancy, HIPAA, all those things, and the fact that big medical device brands are marketing to consumers, but their actual client is doctors. There's this just whole process where you actually don't always know if your marketing's working other than just watching upward trends. So that's, as much as I love the red tape because it forces you to be so creative, I did want to really play in the world of marketing where you can immediately track that return on ad spend. So that's where I got really excited about trying my hand in events.
I think you brought up a great point. In the healthcare world, it is extremely difficult, especially if you're an academic medical center. That's where I work in, because a lot of the times it's very usually the patients that come into our hospital are referred by another provider. They're not self-referred because they're super complex cases that are coming up to us. And so just trying to figure out, okay, who's that referring provider, and then where the referring provider sold or referred to the general cardiologist, then came up to our advanced heart failure, trying to track that journey, trying to see which patients are coming to our website for why. But to your point, the patients aren't my target. It's the referring providers. So
Yeah.
it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Now, one of the things you also mentioned, Ashley, which I thought was really cool. You're not an entrepreneur, you're not an entrepreneur, you're a preneur, because you've been doing a lot of things. In fact, Folks, an entrepreneur, just for general definition, is exactly what kind of Ashley explained, where she was with TicketSocket and then created an entire new business line that's now a standalone company, Ice Cream Social, right? So you're working within an organization and you create an entrepreneurial endeavor that spins off. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of decided, because you mentioned you went from working with TicketSocket, then you went to consulting and then came back. What ultimately decided, like made you decide, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do this consulting stuff, because that is a true entrepreneurial endeavor.
Yeah, well, um, I would say the biggest factor that has always kept me wanting to be, I use consultant loosely. Consultant could be a freelancer, it can be, just an independent contractor, an entrepreneur, a solopreneur. So, whatever you listening are, just know consultant, same thing. So essentially, the reason that I really focused in on that is freedom. There is a book, but now I moved my office around, so my shelf is way back there. There is a book that I would recommend um, to a lot of people, and it's called The Desire Map by an author named Danielle Lepore. And I've this book is really more of a workbook, and I like to do it every 3, 4 years, or just when you feel a new season of life coming on. And essentially, this book takes you through a lot of different exercises in every aspect of your life to essentially get to the end where you have what she calls these core desired feelings. And it's really just like, what do you want to feel every day when you wake up? And you come out with, 3 to 5 words, whatever you narrow it down to. And one of the biggest words that came out for me was just freedom. And at the time that I did this, financial freedom was really important to me. I was, really young, wanting to make a name for myself. I moved from a small farm town in Ohio to, California, which is no joke. Expensive. So yeah, like I wanted to make money essentially. And, you know, time passes, you establish yourself a little bit in your career, and I've done it again, and every time I do it, a lot of the words change for me, but that word freedom always stays, but it has a new definition. And so I would say, the second or third time that I did this workbook, the word freedom for me was really time. I had 2 kids. I was working a lot, just like fitting everything you can in the cracks, kind of reaching that burnout phase of entrepreneurial. Um, and that became like a new shift for me. And then fast forward even further years down the road, and you kind of figure out, okay, you get a little bit of that financial freedom, you get that time freedom, you figure that all out. And now for me, it's really all about like that opportunity freedom, that choice to take on the projects that I feel passionate about, really.
Man, I really like that, the desire map. I don't have to get that book, because it's kind of interesting. We're doing something similar. We run an accelerated program. We're basically going through the business canvas, right?
Uh-huh.
Which is very similar, because essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to, one, identify what do you want? What is your true north, your business true north? What does your business want to do, and what do you want to accomplish? And then operationally and tactfully, what do you need to do? What do you need operationally to succeed in creating, accomplishing those tactics? And so it's very interesting, because that's essentially what the desire map is, but for your own personal growth, which is really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of sticking on, you're the marketing guru. You're doing a lot of the marketing stuff. You're really understanding this. So let's sticking with the marketing, the mapping theme. How do high level marketing strategies and mapping implementations and communication strategies, like how do you use these strategies to maintain a relationship with your shareholders or your consumers, so you can bring them down that referral down that funnel?
Yeah, great question. Again, early in my career, where you just learn how to do something tactical. It was difficult for me to learn to use that side of my brain that could think strategically. But when working in medical device and, there's a lot more people to answer to than, necessarily in a small business, you do need to function from a strategy, like a real plan that is not only laddering up to, of course, your marketing goals, especially when you can't track revenue, but laddering up to like company goals, even bigger. So having just that bigger vision of, hey, how is this that I'm executing? How am I going to put this into a report that the CEO can read in 2 minutes and it's going to make sense to him and see that it's moving the company forward? And so I think that is where a lot of smaller businesses could benefit, is thinking strategically first before diving into marketing. And, it can just be a plan on a page, but just understanding not just what your marketing goals are and how much money you need to make, but like what is your real plan? What is going to move your business forward? Uh what is your branding? What is your messaging? All those things that, like, if you're small and scrappy, it does take a minute to figure out and sit down and think about, but you'll be in a better place because once you've taken the time to build the strategic plan, what's going to happen is you from there turn it into something tactical that can execute, that includes things like Facebook ads, email marketing, SMS, influencer marketing, whatever is a part of that. You're going to get 3-4 months down the road of execution and something's not going to work, and you're going to be like, shoot, now what do I do? Knowing what your strategic end goal is going to help you pivot or push through in the right way without essentially just that shooting from the hip mentality, which you have a lot as a entrepreneur, small business owner, and needing to be able to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. I think it's always helpful.
That's such a great point. And I think one of the things you mentioned too is like, you have to, so when you're presenting this information to an executive team, you have to be able to present it on like a one pager. So they have all the information on one page where it's easily to understand and consume. One thing I created was this target readiness. Essentially, it's the funnel, right? Your sales funnel. And so it's each level of the funnel. And on the left side, it's the markets we're trying to target. And essentially it's saying, where are we at in that market on the funnel? Okay. And where do we want to go in the next 5 years? And then determining on that market, is that a 1 year, 2 priority, 2, 3 year priority, or 4 or 5 year priority, right? And then basically going back to that one pager on a quarterly basis to kind of check our progress as Ashley was mentioning. But the unique thing about it too is essentially if you use the funnel in a way to track what you're doing, it will also provide the tactics and what you're trying to do. Because if you're at the awareness stage, then you're going to be doing just general marketing and branding, things of that nature. Versus if you're at the conversion stage, then you're going to be a little bit more granular on what you're trying to do, trying to create like you mentioned, customer conversion rates, right? Trying to get that consumer to be loyal and actually purchase an item. And then same, once the purchase has been made, then again, your strategy is completely different, right? And so understanding that, folks, is really important. And I really love what Ashley said. Before you do any marketing, it's really important you do the strategy first. The first strategy retreat you should have is really trying to figure out your true north, right? What is your value proposition? What does your company, your organization, whatever it is you're putting together, what is it you want to do? Okay. So that's one. So that's the who. The next is the how do you want to do it? Or the what? What do you want to do? Okay. Now you know who you are. What do you want to do? Okay. Well, I want to do this and this and this and this. Okay. Now you have your kind of goals of what you're trying to do. And then the third retreat is like, okay, how are we going to do it? This is where Ashley was mentioning, talking about the tactics, operations, things of that nature. And this is important to do because what you're going to notice is some of the goals that you might put in front of you, you may not be operationally ready to actually implement, right? And so sometimes scaling too quickly will happen. So just be mindful of that. Operational costs. I was actually writing a blog post earlier today about the coolest cooler. The coolest cooler was released here in Lake Oswego, Oregon. It had all these bells and whistles. It was $185, $15 a ship. It had Bluetooth. It was a cooler and it had a Bluetooth speaker. It had a blender. It had all these cool things. But unfortunately, the cost to actually make the item supersede the actual cost that he was selling it for. So the production cost, right? And then it just trickled down from there. Grew too quickly, realized I had way too many orders to produce, couldn't do it. And so, making sure you're doing that before you get into the marketing phase. But once you get into that tactics, once you kind of get into the operational tactics area and you're needing marketing, how does an entrepreneur leverage digital marketing to help their growth tactics?
Sure. I almost exclusively only do digital marketing, although when I started my career, it was still yellow pages. So I was helping my dad's business like secure their yellow page ads, which is crazy to think. Um, and so with digital marketing, I mean, again, it does go back to that principle of knowing who your demographic is and knowing where do they hang out. Um, Everyone, of course, always mentions Facebook, Instagram ads, um, also known as Meta. And you might think, oh, well, my target market is not on Facebook anymore, or um, they're not on Instagram. And yeah, those are things you have to consider. But with that being said, unfortunately, I still find no matter what, you're still getting the best bang for your buck and a lot of your marketing there. So it's definitely a great place to start because you can get so granular reaching the right audience, and their arms do reach further than just those two platforms. Uh, but I would say, again, it goes back to having that tactical plan and strategy because there's going to not be one channel that works for you. And you don't want all your eggs in one basket. So you do want a robust digital marketing strategy where you are running paid ads, you are doing email marketing, you are doing SMS, you are, doing influencer referral, content marketing. And essentially, sure, you might find that Meta ads or TikTok ads or wherever you're running paid ads shows you that immediate return on ad spend, or, might look like it's performing best for you. So you should ignore everything else. But what you'll find is when you turn off everything else, uh, the results will go down on your ads. It's just that idea of, all boats rise with the tide, and they all do work together, even if you can't always see it in all of your tracking. And that's, in some of my consulting days, that's kind of been one of the things that have been hardest for me is working with agencies that maybe focus on just one thing, um, or they're super broad. You do want to find the right team that can work together and know it's not email against Facebook ads. Like they can work hand in hand in ways that you can't even believe. Like I'm a big fan of I'll get super tactical on you guys here, but I'm a big fan of an email marketing tool called Active Campaign.
Yep.
Uh, you might be able to do this in other tools like Klaviyo or HubSpot, but I mostly work in Active Campaign, so I'm going to speak specifically to this. And we tie that to our ticketing system, but you can tie it to like anything, Shopify, WordPress, all of that. And what happens is when a customer makes a purchase, we send all that purchaser data to Active Campaign, and Active Campaign can see exactly what that person purchased. So then what we can do is have an automation set up that publishes them to Facebook audiences. So we can run the most specific ad to them that says, hey, we're so glad you're coming. You should upgrade your ticket to VIP, or hey, click here to get a cut the line pass because we know they already bought this.
Right.
Now we want to upsell them on that. So you can get so specific, and it really does feel like a one-to-one marketing ad experience. And that's where you get really great results.
Yeah, I got to tell you, folks, I'm shout out to Veronica, who sits on our board for Latino founders. She has gotten me into Active Campaign, so I've been using it and learning it, and, really kind of diving into it. And the beauty of it, you know, Ashley, you wear a lot of hats, and so do I, right? We all wear a lot of hats. I work in healthcare full time. I do the podcast, and then we run a nonprofit, and I have two kids at home as well. Now, with that said, Active Campaign, the beauty of what this thing does is it really helps me create it helps me identify my true actual audience and segmentate them. So for example, With our nonprofit, we're going to have alumni. So individuals that have either gone through our accelerated program, done a pitch competition, right? So they're a part of our alumni. To Ashley's point, their message is going to be a little bit different, right? We're going to try to continue to have them go through programs, mentorships, networking events, right? And then there's the philanthropists, the individuals that are donating funds to us. Again, different message. Hey, hey, I noticed it's Giving Tuesday. We'd love to, they're going to get those messages directly, right?
Yep.
Versus a consumer, someone that just wants to, hang out. Hey, did you know we're having another event, or, and also possibly having a grassroots effort in philanthropy to those individuals as well. So Active Campaign, I've just been using it for like the last 3 months. It's really good. I'm still starting to get into it, starting the segmentations piece. But it's like a freaking Ferrari from what I'm used to using, to be honest with you.
It is for sure. Definitely don't let that intimidate you. It sounds like you've got a great expert on your team, so it's a Ferrari, but definitely it's amazing.
It's great. I love it. Now speaking kind of on that, because essentially I love how you segment your folks and you really focus on the marketing piece. How does an entrepreneur take a contract, right, or a client and turn them into a lifetime client?
Do good work. Honestly, that's what it is. Do good work, be a good person, always do the right thing. And I think that part can get tricky, especially when there's money involved and maybe what you're doing you thought would work and it didn't. And just being able to say, this did not work and I'm so sorry. Either, hey, here's your money back, or two, we're going to pivot. We're going to do this instead. I'm committed and I'm going to see this through to success for you. Whatever the situation is, whatever feels right. That has always been priority to me over, just making lots of money. Is just doing the right thing, doing good work, when I work with people, I personally think, and some feedback I've gotten, that I am like a part of their company. Even if I am a contractor, like I like to function as if I work at your company and your end goal is my end goal and we're in this together. So it's just, yeah, doing good work, being passionate, and just being responsible, communicating, very simple things, but it can get tricky as you get overwhelmed and you're growing and you're figuring things out, especially in marketing and digital marketing, where you could have the most perfect strategy plan, and sometimes it just does not work. And you really got to dig in and figure out why. And it's not always the marketing. And you just got to be able to push through that.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's not always the marketing. There's so many variables that occur in a market. Like, I don't know, the freaking pandemic, right? Might screw some things up. So be just mindful and always continue to track what you're doing. And I really like what you mentioned too, is just being able to kind of get out there and meeting with people, networking is so important as well. And with your marketing thing, understanding when to pivot and when to not, I think is also important. Now, with your experience, you've been doing this for some time. What would you say is have you seen one of the biggest mistakes or things that people repetitively do that they should stop doing in the marketing world?
I would say kind of what we touched on earlier is doing your marketing without a plan, functioning without a plan, shooting from the hip. Because when you do get to that point, because it's going to happen no matter what, like something's not going to work. Sales aren't going to be selling, the ads aren't going to be converting. And there's a lot of things that you have to analyze to figure out why. And I'm sure you deal with this in healthcare, but one thing that was really important for us to know in medical device or even events is, guess what? Your product has a consideration cycle, especially if it's a higher end cost, something people have to think about. What is your business's consideration cycle when someone's buying? So just because you get a lead and it doesn't turn into a sale in a week, that's okay. Maybe your consideration cycle is 6 months and you need to know how to nurture them for 6 months. Maybe in events, what we find, especially in a post-pandemic world, is timing. People do not buy tickets as far in advance as they used to. And you have to build a plan around that, knowing, hey, majority of your money is going to come in the last 10 days before the event, which is a very stressful situation to be in if you're an event planner. And you have to know how to do the right marketing so that you do have these big bumps of sales and you do know what's coming and can plan and all of that. So I think having that plan and strategy and understanding and foresight to know how to push through those tough moments.
That's such a good point, because I think that's actually unintentionally to a lot of people, especially in the healthcare world. I think that's what we're facing quite a bit right now is um, just the things have changed in a way that is made a lot of things difficult, and why you want to market to things, or who you should be marketing to versus who not you should be marketing to, right? There's been a huge consolidation in the healthcare world, where you're seeing all the independent clinics kind of disappear, really. But one tactic I would tell you folks, if you do events, and you're probably asking yourself, well, how do I get all this contact information? Well, there's a few different tactics you can do. If you're in the healthcare world and you're able to provide a continuing medical education, well, what I would recommend is after the lecture, tell them, hey, in order for you to receive CME, here's this evaluation that you have to do online, and then you can capture their information that way. That's one. If you're doing an event, like you're just out at an event, one thing you can do is a giveaway. Hey, leave your business card here and we're going to give you, we're giving something away. And while you're at it, would you be interested in checking in on our newsletter? The folks that are on your newsletter right now, those that you mentioned, Ashley, the ones you're starting nurturing a little bit more, right?
Right.
Because now like you got some contact with them. The folks that didn't sign up for your newsletter, okay, but you still have their contact information. So later down in life, all of a sudden they do pop up on your newsletter. You're like, oh man, you went to your CRM, you saw that you contact them at this event, and then going back to Ashley's point, you can begin to create, really targeted messagings to them, so they really feel that, because I think a lot of people right now want to feel that, personalized concierge service when it comes to everything. When
Yeah.
it comes to my coffee, when it comes to the way my grocery line, with the way it comes to just driving in general, right? There's a lot of things where it's really, you want concierge service. I mean, I was in Missouri just this last week, and my father-in-law's new car has a massage chair in it. I'm like, why the hell do you need a massage chair in your car when you're driving? But again, it's just constantly trying to think of different ways to create value. And it's just very interesting, because marketing plays such a big role in trying to get individuals to purchase your item, become aware of your item, but it also plays an immense role in keeping them as well, keeping them a loyal consumer.
Totally agree.
Now, let's talk about, Ice Cream Social 5 year ago. Where do you see yourself in 5 years with Ice Cream Social? What's the plan?
Sure. Well, we did get an investment from NBC Sports Comcast, so that was really exciting. And
Nice, congratulations.
thank you. Just want to encourage everyone out there. We talked a little bit about pivoting and COVID. Obviously, working in events during COVID was not a great time. So that was a time where we pivoted and we thought, you know what, this feature inside of TicketSocket's working really well. E-commerce is still alive. Events might not be, but let's peel this off and make it its own standalone product. And so just that creativity and thinking, just want to encourage people when you do have to pivot, like there's always something. So our vision with that right now is, yes, continue expanding, reinventing the product and how we gamify it to get people to always want to share, always want to do that word of mouth marketing, turning customers into advocates, but also creating a a marketplace essentially for people to come to find really cool offers and incentives for things that they're already sharing and talking about, and kind of bridging that together and creating, like its own little search engine. So we've got some cool things planned over the next 5 years. And who knows how that'll pivot and change as technology keeps progressing so quickly.
Yeah, and folks, you might maybe one day see the shades of entrepreneurship on there encouraging you to share the podcast, right? To get some more
Yeah.
listeners, which encourage more revenue, right? So there's definitely ways, and you know, one of the things actually you mentioned too is being like diversifying your marketing avenues. You know, all the different platforms, folks. I got to tell you, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook. It is time consuming. It is. I will admit. TikTok has been the one platform I have not done the best on. Surprisingly enough, LinkedIn has been the one I've done the best on. And so, like to Ashley's point, you just don't know where your audience is at. You just have to put out content and put out information out there and really begin to test the waters. And sometimes you might realize that you've actually have a completely different target audience than you've actually been targeting originally. Or you might have a problem to a solution that nobody actually has a problem for, right? And maybe your own problem that you created a solution. And so that's also a good way to kind of identify if you have a minimal viable product, anything to actually take to market before you should even market it as well, right? Just getting out there, talking with people, getting a good understanding of what do they like, what do they don't like, because then you can kind of create your ideal customer profile and then really focus that marketing on those individuals.
Absolutely. Yeah. Welcome the feedback and the criticism and take it and learn how to work with it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's folks, it's not easy sometimes taking the criticism, but if you take it with knowing like, hey, someone's trying to help me out and trying to provide some insight, that is your consumer at the end of the day. So take that and take it with a grain of salt if you have to, but they are at the end of the day, they are your consumer. They're the one that are willing to reach in their back pocket, pull out their wallet, and purchase something from you. So, taking that feedback to heart sometimes is very important.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Ashley, for the folks that might be listening, they are interested in learning more about you, learn about more about Ice Cream Social. How can they connect with you? How can they find you online?
Sure. Ashley Stanford, you can type it into LinkedIn, TikTok, wherever and find me. Ashley N for Nicole, Stanford.com. Fortunately, I can't just get Ashley Stanford. Uh, TicketSocket.com, icecreamsocial.io. Uh, find me wherever, connect with me, however, doesn't matter.
I love it. And folks, if you forget all that information, that is a good idea for you to subscribe to the Shades of Entrepreneurship newsletter. You can do that by visiting theshadesofE.com. I will have all of Ash's information on the website, as well as the newsletter. There'll be a blog post about this conversation, as well as transcription in an audio version and video version of this conversation on the website. So please visit the Shades of E and subscribe to stay up to date. You can also follow us on the social sites at the Shades of E on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So again, feel free to connect with us. Ashley, I really do appreciate the time, the conversation. Is there any last words you'd like to say to listeners before we leave?
Ah, I don't know. I would say get the Desire Map book.
Yes, it is definitely on my list of things to do now.
Okay, great.
So you hear that, folks, the desired book. I'm back. I might even make sure I put that on the newsletter for those individuals. Although first I got to get through my Dragonlance book that I just purchased because I'm a big nerd. So I'm reading a fantasy book, and once I'm done with that, I'll definitely jump over back to some business education.
Love it.
So Ashley, again, I thank you so much for your time. Folks that are listening, again, please subscribe to the Shades of Entrepreneurship by visiting theshadesofE.com. Thank you and have a great night.